You're listening to The Freight Break on the BCS Freight Network with your hosts, Josh Haynes and Paul Gibson.
And welcome to The Freight Break. I'm your host, Paul Gibson, along with your host, Josh Haynes. What's up, man?
This guy? I don't know. That was a terrible dad joke. Normally I'm more prepared with the dad jokes, but I didn't have a dad joke. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. That one's a classic. That one, it's easy, but it's also, I think that's the classic. I'm doing good, just hanging out, watching the trucking industry and the freight industry and then all of it and the transportation just be, its normal wild self.
Yeah, I made a thumbnail for one of the videos. It's probably dropped by now, but it was like a semi-truck going off of a cliff on fire. And at first it felt like that would have been like a super like standout thumbnail, right? And then it's like the way the trucking industry is, it feels like that would just like fit right in with the normal news. So,
this is like, okay, just a normal picture of a truck these days. Or any sort of chart or graph. It's going in some direction and it's on fire. Up or down, doesn't really matter. But that's the thing is it's really important to not get overwhelmed with it or get disenfranchised and to keep moving, and so it's fun. And I'm excited we got, BCS coming up, and I'm excited to go to Dallas here in a couple months.
Are you, did you just tell me you're excited to go to Texas? Because I think that's the first time I've ever heard those words come out of your mouth.
Well, we don't travel as much as we used to now that we have this job, and I'm kind of excited to see people. It also dawned on me that it's pretty much September.
Yeah, dog. It's
like
the sun's getting real low, big guy kind of thing, Yeah,
I was like, oh shit, it's dark at 8:00.
Yeah, dude. I think wow. A couple days ago it was the last day, like 8:00 or later. The sun was setting. Now it's before. It could be like 7:59, but still, it before we know it, it'll be like 4:00 and getting dark.
Mm-hmm. And so that's, it's like that happens so fast.
Did they ever pass the like daylight savings thing that they were talking about for a long time?
No, it got held up in the House, just like everything else. It got held up in legislation. It never actually passed. It passed the House. It got held up in the Senate. So no, just like everything else. Yeah,
yeah. I can definitely tell school is back in session. It is getting closer to, I like fall weather. I prefer warm weather over winter, so do not get those two confused. However, I do like fall for a multitude of reasons, especially Halloween. It's awesome. Football is fantastic, and it's just a nice cooler weather. And I run now, so running in 110-degree weather, 90% humidity at like 9 p.m. at night or 6 a.m. in the morning sucks.
Yeah, excited to do that when it's like 15 degrees outside.
No, we'll check back in. Like we'll play this clip again, and then I'll be like, God, idiot! Like when we come back to it, I miss sweating so much. Yeah,
like it, dude. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that goes for you, early winter. But yeah, no, it's. But that's the thing is BCS is less than 2 months away, man.
I know it is. We are. I think quietly, who said that the other day? Someone said something. We were talking to someone and they were saying something about the duck. And I felt that in my soul, where it's like on the top of the water, you're really calm, but underneath the water, your feet are like pedaling really fast. And it's like, I feel like that's what we're like, everyone on the BCS team right now, getting ready for the next summit, the next thing coming, is we look calm and cool. But we're working, man. We're working. I feel like that's anything with the trucking industry, though, honestly.
Oh, yeah, the trucking industry. That's why the general public doesn't even, like, pay attention to it. It's because, like, from a perspective of someone who, sees a truck on the road a couple times, or maybe, like, pulls up to a store and sees something getting delivered, where it has a package on the doorstep. It doesn't seem like there's any problems. It doesn't seem like there's any issue. Feels like a well-oiled machine, which is wild. You know, it's kind of like I feel like working in transportation is kind of like being a parent. Like your kids don't know what's wrong. You're just like, oh yeah, everything's fine, guys.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a well-oiled machine or if it's just a lot of duct tape that keeps getting put on the things. Like,
Oh no, it's a mess.
The old timers that like won't redo like something, they just keep tinkering with it. It's like you could go out and buy a new one. You know, like this is done. It's
From the outside though.
True.
Perfect.
From the outside, it looks great. That's why I think so many people freaked out during COVID.
Right. Because they didn't know. They didn't, you know, it's one of those unless you like, you know, like which is, you know, the niche that we live in. But yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it's been a wild year. It's wild to think that, you know, we're almost to, was it so, and this is we're like pretty close to flirting with like third quarter.
I
You
know.
know?
Well,
Like,
and we talked about we kind of dabbled in this, and I wanted to ask you this today, so it kind of actually organically worked out really well. Do you think we've made trucking too complicated in some areas, like with so many new tech things coming out, AI? You know, a lot of bills are being passed, whether it's good or bad. It's just it feels like
well,
more stuff gets piled into the machine of it. You know.
I don't know what you mean by a lot of bills getting passed. I feel like a lot of bills are getting
Okay.
written. I don't think bills are getting passed.
Okay, maybe that's better phrasing. Yeah.
Decisions are being made. You know, things and policies, but legislation. I wish. No, I think it was complicated. I think it's always been overcomplicated. You know, as me as being a Motor Carrier Act of 1980 theorist, you know, like I think that the whole thing is way too complicated and has been for decades. But yeah, a lot of that stuff. I mean, some of it adds to noise, some of it is solutions though, you know, and there have been some, kind of like our guest today, you know, with all the Montgomery stuff going on, and you know, everybody's on the other side of it trying to like be like, hey, you know, how do we best prepare ourselves, you know, for any sort of legal situation where we have to defend our choices, defend this, show this, how do we vet carriers, you know, how do we defend ourselves, you know, and like I think it was Craig Helmer came on and he said the best thing you can do is, you know, you need to paint a picture of your company in the best you possibly can. You know, and other people have talked about like standard operating procedures and making sure you have those in place and being able to show that you can follow all those. But there's not really a lot of things that you can do other than that. But then now today we have Ryan Rogers from TextLocate, which is a company, Tenstreet company, and they've got some stuff going on that I think is about to absolutely change the game. And that's not even in a like oh, I like these guys, you know, fluffy kind of way. It's like, you know, I think a lot of people. It's going to be interesting because a lot of people don't know that much about Tenstreet. I feel like on the freight side, because I mean they started out as, you know, driver ATS and, you know, driver like recruiting marketing type stuff. It's like where when you get a driver application, where it goes so you can see as a recruiter. Also the Intella app, which most drivers all have an Intella app, which is essentially an application that anybody who uses Tenstreet, you can fill out an Intella app and it goes to them. And they now have realized with the information that they have, they can provide carriers essentially like the best picture they could possibly paint in real time, knowing if all of their drivers are all of these, you know, like qualified with if they're like their CDLs, stuff like that, down to the driver, let alone, you know, that keeps in all their safety records, stuff like that. But we'll get to that. I don't want to steal Ryan's thunder, and I don't want to, you know, raise surprises, and we'll definitely talk about it like later on in the show. But regardless, this whole thing I think is about to be a game changer in that area and make a lot of people's lives a lot easier and make a lot of this a lot more defendable, like make it easier for carriers to actually get freight and like be used, but then also allow, you know, brokerages to sleep better at night because of the amount of data and information that's like super objective that they're going to have their hands on. So I'm really excited to get into that.
Yeah, I remember coming into the industry, and the first thing it seemed like it was like driver facing cameras and tech here and things here, and I agree that stuff has been always trying to make it better. So maybe when I ask, are we making trucking too complicated? And I do agree with you, it's been complicated from the beginning. I think the right people in the right positions are starting to figure out what stuff actually impacts people in a positive way and lifts everyone, right? Not just the people pointing the finger trying to blame someone else, which there still are those people, but
I will say I am starting to feel like a boomer. I'm still starting to feel like a boomer posting like bad memes on Facebook. Like, I will say, as as cool as chatbots are and stuff, it's like, I live on Earth. I shouldn't have to press one to speak to a human. Like,
how many times do you just answer and you're just like, give me the operator, give me the person, a person.
Yeah, a person. Well, I can't give you a person, but I can definitely give you a break. We'll be right back after this.
In freight, the best opportunities don't come from another email. They come from a conversation. That's why hundreds of industry leaders come together at the Broker Carrier Summit. If you're serious about building stronger partnerships and staying ahead in freight, this is where you need to be. Join us at the Broker Carrier Summit, October 27th through 28th in Dallas, Texas. Register now at brokercarriersummit.com.
All right, and we're back on the freight break today with our guest, Ryan Rogers from TextLocate, Tenstreet company. How's it going, Ryan?
It's going well. How are you, Paul?
Oh, doing pretty good. A long time no talk. So our whole thing is perspectives and finding people who came up from different spots of the industry and seeing how they view things. So you kind of have an interesting background between, like the various elements of the tech and then also being on kind of both sides of the industry. So for our listeners, can you kind of give me like your background, like a quick overview?
Great. Yeah, so 20, I hate to say it out loud, but 27 years in the industry. It goes by, you think someday slow, but overall really quickly. So I started off on the carrier side. I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, started with US Express. More on the financial side of the company, and then spent a lot of time there, 16 years, transitioning over into managing their freight brokerage division as well. Then went to Amazon, so then switched to the shipper side of the business, running truckload procurement for North America, and then transitioned back in Chattanooga with Covenant Transport as basically Chief Transformation Officer, tech innovation, strategic planning, M&A stuff, and then ran their brokerage division for a while, and then transitioned into software on my own and started TextLocate back in 2021.
Hmm. Yeah, and then that was purchased by Tenstreet.
Yeah, I actually transitioned, sold the business to Tenstreet last year. Continue to work with them. Great company, fabulous team. Really saw the opportunity to the areas at TextLocate that we were focused on: driver communication, location updates, just anything that makes it easy for the driver to communicate with the freight broker. We really, took that to a text-based level. And then when the opportunity to work with Tenstreet, it just made such a great fit. As Tenstreet, as you guys know, big in the asset side of the business, and they were wanting to be able to improve communication and touch points with brokers between the drivers between brokers and drivers, using their technology, our texting tools, and the Fleet Pulse, the Pulse app as well. So it's been a great fit.
Yeah, no, I remember when that like deal started taking shape. That by itself was mind blowing and game changing. Because a lot of people, might not like. It is one of those things we talk about, like, you realize what certain things look like depending on what side of the industry you're on, but you might not know the weight of it. And especially with a lot of our audience being more, on the freight side of things, like and even sometimes on the carrier side of things, I don't think people realize like how big Tenstreet is, and like unless you come from like a recruiting background, like the Intella app is like you can talk to drivers. Like a driver will know what the Pulse app is. A driver will know what an Intel app is. That's why like other applicant, I think that the fleet equivalent would be like a TMS, but it's like or the freight equivalent would be like a TMS, but it's like the ATSs when it comes to recruiting, it's almost like there's not really any room for much else because Tenstreet's kind of got the market share of all of it.
Yeah,
And
they've done
so
a phenomenal job. And Tenstreet just turned 20 years old this year, so it was started in '06. It was started way ahead of its time, and I think that's why it's become such a great product.
yeah, and then with TextLocate and that coming together, just the level of communication is wild. Like I think for some people who may not know, I know a lot of people know like TextLocate, especially on this side of things, but like what really have you seen? I remember when this first kind of got talked about, but like now, like having been further into it and partnered up for a long time, like what has changed, what has grown, what have you guys developed together in that time?
Yeah, it's been great. So, when Tim and I originally talked about this, there was a lot of things that we wanted to do, make the communication easier via whether it's TextLocate's texting product or whether if the driver already has the 10 Street Pulse app, it would just be already in their pocket and they could continue conversations there. We can share images, status updates, pickup deliveries, appointment times, all the things that you can imagine that are just easier and simple via messaging tools for the drivers. And then the unique new stuff that we brought to the table is around driver vetting, driver, protection. We've got a new product called Driver Protect where the drivers can actually upload their CDL into 10 Street Pulse app and it's retained there. So brokers can ask to confirm, are you a legitimate driver? And they're able to, put their profile and data there. We've expanded that now, just recently launching a fleet product with inside of 10 Street. So in the Pulse app as well, if you're a small fleet, call it 10 drivers or less, you can actually now go in and get a lot of 10 Street's benefit using a fleet profile. You can actually enroll your drivers. That way you can, use 10 Street's tools to be compliant. You can send routes, you can get all kinds of like detention times. There are just so many tools available that is new. And then the third piece of the product we're releasing is around, we call it Carrier Protect, and it's around where carriers can share their information and characteristics to freight brokers to say, hey, I should be a preferred carrier. I use 10 Street. I'm using these tools. My drivers are in compliant. Their CDLs aren't expired. We're taking the training and the safety necessary steps, clearing house data, just all the things. We're being a compliant trucking company that you can now validate and verify. So very cool to bring all those pieces together.
Wow. So like I don't it is, and I think that is it's simple. It's simple, but I think a lot of people don't understand the weight of that. That's a game changer. And like a
It
post
is.
Montgomery world, like I don't think
Yep.
people realize what's if that like when do you know when that's going to like actually drop and be accessible?
The driver CDL verification is already accessible now. We already have customers using it, processing tens of thousands of transactions just constantly, all day, every day. The fleet tool just started rollout last week. It's available. We haven't really started marketing it, but it's available there if you want to use it. And then the Carrier Protect is a function of the fleet data. So as the fleet data, people start signing up and growing, they'll be able to share their profile as well. So to your point, after the Montgomery ruling, I mean, if you have a broker that's, hey, are you legit? They can verify the carrier to see if it's legit. They can verify the driver, and they'll be able to see characteristics. So makes all the sense in the world. I mean, my opinion is a little bit different. It's just my personal opinion. But if you're currently a 10 Street customer already, a carrier that's using 10 Street, to me that says a lot by itself, saying that I already pay for a product and use a product that keep me in compliant, that I'm able to you keep my drivers in compliant and do all the right things that are required.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of the thing that, especially, here in a bit after break, I'd love to do a deeper dive on. But yeah, that's like, because when that driver applies for that carrier, they give them all of their information. It's got their med card, their like their license, all of it, absolutely every, like, their job history, their MVR, their accident history, their PSP, anything you'd like would want to know about the driver is going to be in there. And so to be able to use that as like a snapshot for your company, because one of the things with a lot of people that I've talked to, like, in this situation, obviously it's going to be years before we have precedents set. But the whole thing that even like the lawyers that I've talked to, they're like, the biggest, most important part as a carrier or as a brokerage is to paint a picture, to be able to paint a picture of everything, your standard operating procedure, and to paint a picture, because that's what's going to go before a jury, and that's all that is based on collecting data. And so now you have all of the data right there and the proof that everything is compliant, all in like one, like, easy together place that it already exists.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. And we do protect the data. That's what's unique about Tenstreet. We're always protective of driver personal data. So we don't show all the details. The driver has the ability to show different information across that. So I think that's unique too, to do it the right way instead of just sending over a picture or an image or something like that. We have it all contained which is hence the name Driver Protect. We want to protect driver's identity, and make it where it's not, it's protected, not shared everywhere like an image would be, but it's shared as you want to, when you want to, and to who you want to.
Oh no, for sure. And that's one thing that's always been, especially on that side of the industry too, just in general, and things that drivers interface with. It's always interesting to see where the lapses sometimes are, and I'm like, why oof. So yeah, I won't get too far into that for partially personal reasons, but but we will be right back after this break. More with Ryan. This is going to change a lot of things. We'll be right back on the freight break.
The future of cross-border freight is happening in Laredo, Texas, February 18th through 19th. Join carriers, brokers, shippers, technology providers, and industry leaders at the Cross-Border Connector. Build relationships, discover opportunities, and stay ahead of the trends shaping cross-border logistics. Register today at bcsfreightnetwork.com.
All right, and we're back on the freight break with Ryan Rogers of TextLocate, Tenstreet company. But yeah, so catch everybody up to speed. One of the things that they like is coming out is essentially, so Tenstreet's this applicant tracking system. They're the largest applicant tracking system with the largest amount of like driver data, because every driver that applies for any company that use Tenstreet, you have their MVR, their PSP, their license information, their driving history, all of it, which, to the point you made earlier, Ryan, you guys go above and beyond out of your way to protect that data, which, I've seen some of the safeguards and stuff like that, and it's actually at a point to where I'm like, oh, I would put my information in there, and so that's awesome. But at the same time, because you have all that information, all of these carriers can now use that to paint a picture of their company. So, if someone's trying to vet them, it's like literally any information you would want to vet a company is going to be available.
Yeah, it's as you know, Tenstreet's, in my opinion, the only company that has this kind of data and has this at a large scale to be able to share. I mean, I think even like CDLs, I think they have like 6 million plus CDLs or more just over the years that they've accumulated. Obviously, not all those are active, but yes, we've got the data. We'll be able to share that. We'll be able to get confirmation, because I think there's a world that we look at a year from now where verifying a driver's CDL is going to be on every load. Every brokered load is going to request that, making sure that those drivers are compliant, not just from to kind of double, for safety, but also from a fraud perspective to make sure, because we're seeing a lot of non-CDLs come across, which is scary to imagine there's people out there driving on the roads without a CDL. And also it can be a risk from a fraud perspective if you've got somebody that's trying to take advantage of a fraud situation. They're going to use their own personal CDL or fake or something like that, like a non-CDL. So I think there's a huge benefit in having all this data and unlocking pieces of those. And again, we're not going to tell all the data, but we're going to like down to the detail, granular, but we will tell the symptoms and the characteristics so that okay, what kind of trucking company am I signing up to use on this brokered load? Well, they're one that uses Tenstreet's products. So that gives you a really warm and good, fuzzy feeling that they're using those products to, to just confirm compliance, that they're willing to do something versus just sticking some papers in a filing cabinet. So I think that's a huge advantage all the way down to, are their DQF files up to date? The tool actually allows using some of Tenstreet's AI to edit check and say, oh, hey, I think you need to check on this or that. We've got training capabilities so that these small fleets can actually roll out training tools to their drivers, and we'll be able to give characteristics about what percentage of their drivers are using the training tools, all those pieces. It's so much information. To your point earlier, Paul, Tenstreet's got such a network that really nobody else in the industry has, and we want to use that, obviously for good, to fight off fraud and to verify a carrier from a safety perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, so for me, like starting on the carrier side, specifically in recruiting and moving through the industry, and now half at the freight side, half on the carrier side. It's wild to see Tenstreet start to bleed over in that way. To the extent of where I feel like they're gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be a name that and that's crazy to see. But yeah, it's and the other thing too is everything you guys do. I'm assuming that this, just like everything else, is going to come with customized reporting and all sorts of personalization capabilities and stuff like that.
It does. I mean, inside of what we think is unique is we're maximizing the use of the Tenstreet Pulse app. So if drivers do applications and things there, or they do training and updates with large fleets, it's got all those same characteristics built inside of Tenstreet Pulse. Additionally, it has, you have all your profiles and all the customizations that you want as a truck driver as well. And the fact that you can get updates right there in a tool that you're not, quote, forced to use, but one that you like using every day makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I love that. I think ultimately, because it is in a day where data and information is everywhere, and a lot of people are messy with data. More importantly, a lot of people are messy with other people's data, which is terrible. But I think that's the cool thing too, is you're not, you have enough data to create a snapshot, and to verify without having to actually give away all of the data.
Correct.
So it's you're not gonna give away enough of the driver's data to where, from a carrier perspective, where somebody could come in and try to scout your driver, or as a driver, you're not gonna have different people for reasons that don't affect you directly passing around your data in a way to where your identity could be stolen, or you're going to end up in some sort of some other mess.
Yep. It's safely secure with Tenstreet.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. So I guess I would ask you, I mean, there's that, and obviously there was a need, and you guys are stepping up in creating an answer, which I just I can't wait for the rollout of that. That sounds that almost just seems I don't know that, regardless of what precedence is, I don't know that you can have a much better picture than that if you are trying to create a story, to draw, show a picture of your company, in a vetting kind of way. But I guess, what else have you what does everything look like right now from your guys' perspective? What's on fire? what's not? Like, what do you see coming? Just like your perspective on the industry right now from where you sit.
Well, I think that, I mean, obviously everything I hear, I mean, the biggest challenge right now, or not biggest, biggest is always getting freight, but outside of that is the fraud. The fraud does not slow down. So we want to continue to see, whether it's what we've already built or what we're building in the future, ways to start, reducing that. I think eliminating fraud 100% is a little bit hard to say. It's always been there. It just is now so much bigger than ever. So, working with other parties to figure out, okay, how do we, um, how do we give a leg up to just a legit driver? Like the good, solid driver that does what they're supposed to every day. I feel like they a lot of times get penalized. They don't always see the best freight, or they don't always get characterized the best, which they're the ones being compliant, doing the right things, and moving our freight every day all over the country. So we want to, continue providing tools that make their life easier. Just things that I love the communication side, because it's just such a breakdown for truck drivers. You're in a very fragmented industry with millions of trucks on the road and drivers out there, and how do you give them updates when schedules change, and load timing changes, and simple things like being able to stop at a fuel stop and use the restroom or take a shower or get some food versus showing up to an appointment too early that got moved, and now you're sitting in the back 40 with no amenities is really hard. Those are exciting things that we're having progress, or even with our new routing tools that we can give them heads up on timing with traffic and things like that are truck specific. Just making a driver's life easier is what we like to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I've been advocating for that for years. That is
We
kind of
all
my whole,
should. It's a hard job.
that's my whole thing too with like, companies right now. Everybody's talking about how they're having trouble recruiting new drivers, or getting drivers in. Uh, mostly because of the way the last 3 years have gone and like people raising their stuff. But like people are like, how do you market to drivers to get them in right now? And I'm like, it's the same thing that I've been saying for years, and it's worked for me for years. Is that job sucks. There's nothing you can do to make that job not be a hard job. So the question is, what can you do to make that job suck less? And I think that's why I've always been a Tenstreet fan, and like in TextLocate and you guys, is because I think we're on the same page with that. Like, how do we make that job suck less?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, it's not only tough, it's dangerous. You're exhausted. There's just a list a mile long of things that we take for granted every day. The simplistic things that we have that drivers just don't have access to.
Yeah, well, we can't even get a bathroom. Can't get a bathroom bill passed.
Right. It's so tough. It's like it's just amazing. It's such a tough challenge for drivers out there on the road, but that's why it's been amazing with Tenstreet. We're supporting the industry. We're bringing good tools that make sense for the driver's use. We're seeing great activity. Drivers seem to be embracing all the new things that we're doing. I mean, we get a lot of people without even requested. They're going and updating their profiles and CDL info because they can trust Tenstreet and they want to be able to have that data ready and to be able to share. So again, these are the people that do it right every day that keep our freight moving.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate you guys out there innovating and trying to fight the good fight. Always been a fan. So where can people find you, or if they want to learn more about any of this, who do they talk to? Where do they go?
Yeah, just textlocate.com for some of our pieces, and then also tenstreet.com. Very simple, easy to find us. Tons of information out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, man. And can't wait for all this to drop. But we'll be right back on the Freight Break. Hi. This isn't part of the show. This is supposed to be an ad. This could be your ad if you want to sponsor it. You could sponsor this spot right here. This could be your time to shine. And, get your brand all across the entire BCS freight network. So, if you want to sponsor us, hit me up. Do you think that one's gonna work? And we're back on the freight break. How's it going, Josh? What do you think about that?
I think a lot of things, Paul. How was how was the conversation with you and Ryan? How did that go?
It was good. No, so the idea is, that Tenstreet, like I was saying earlier in the show, they essentially it's the gold standard for driver applications. Like they have the most probably driver data out of anybody out there. Because they have, I think he said at some point, they're not all active anymore, but he had something like 6 million different driver profiles. And not all of them are active, but still a lot of them are. And so it's the idea that you can place those drivers at these different carriers who have them in their Tenstreet systems. And now these carriers who have these drivers in their Tenstreet systems can use those, put them together. And so if a broker wants to vet the carrier, they now can show them all of their drivers are, medically certified, have their licenses aren't expired, what their, any sort of accidents they've had, all of that down to the drive. They can show them all of these things. And then on top of that, in a way that I care about, I thought it was great that they'll share the information they need to, but they also still protect the driver's information. So it's not like the driver's information is just getting tossed out there to everybody. And also for a carrier and, this cutthroat recruiting market, it's you're not going to be giving out your driver's information in a way that someone else can contact them and try to scoop them up from you.
Not do what you did to Charles and put his number in something to get blown up somewhere else. How much do you think that's going to cut down that's got to cut down a lot on the fraud than if they're verifying it quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this could become I think this is a game changer. I think this could become a standard. Yeah, because I mean, I don't know what more information you could possibly really want.
Yeah, and it's I'm sure there's still, I mean, even as we're saying this, there's scumbags and people always trying to figure out the next thing. Anytime someone good's doing something, someone bad's doing something else. So I know things will change, and fraud and all the bad things are always going to continue to happen. However, if this can eliminate some of the steps or bring the steps together, it's essentially got to be lowering the fraud altogether in majority of those situations, because it's not so much, well, let's go check here, here, and here. It's let's just check here, and we're checking multiple things at one time, right?
Well, and that's, I mean, there's different companies that'll go off e-logs, or they'll go off, Safer Web and, Modus and stuff like that. The data that's being provided is objective. It's the data that a lot of other places are trying to get a snapshot of, and this is the actual data. So it's by all means, it just is there's not I've not seen a better way to be able to capture that than this. And I'm just so pumped that it's the amount of ethics that have gone into it to make it, safe for the data of the users, because it's kind of if something's free, you're the product. That's the thing that gets said a lot, and it's the value for the product is the data verification, but for the people who, are providing the data, it's, I mean, the value that it brings them is huge. It's actually almost it almost feels, in my opinion, feels like a win for the people willing to put it in.
Yeah, and I mean, neither of us are brokers, so I can't speak 100% to it, but I feel like majority of brokers would be willing to pay a little more to know that the carrier is legitimate, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of those vetting systems and stuff are for. Yeah, but it's none of them have access to the data. That's what makes this so mind blowing. This almost, I feel in a lot of ways, other than trucking happens, And there might be some discrepancies. I don't know. Like it's not out yet, but I feel like this could be a game changer in the vetting thing. Like nobody else has this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and jokingly, maybe not jokingly, how much verification do you think is too much verification? Are these people like sending in like a vial of their spit?
Well,
Like,
I mean, like,
just
well, I
kidding.
mean, but the thing, I mean, when you're going to court and you're being held liable, I don't know that there is too much.
That's true.
That's one of those I would rather have too much than not enough. There is no too much. If anything else, that becomes overwhelming evidence that you did your job. Like there can't be too much.
So if this stays in the trajectory that it's going, how long do you think it'll be that we look back, or like you're saying now that it's a game changer? Do you think looking back or at the moment right now and going, oh yeah, this is going to impact so much, or is it going to be that we need to see this in action for a little bit of time to really go, yeah, that was a pretty game changer thing right there?
Well, it's like that, and that's the thing too. This isn't like it's not an empty promise or a theory. It's so the cool thing is, Tenstreet. I think part of the reason why I'm excited about it, kind of a fan. I've dealt with them a lot. On the carrier side, in recruiting. So I've been dealing with them for a long time. We've even been to like some of their conferences and stuff. And so it's one of those things. They're from a different area. And so you got a lot of people in this area trying to solve for like this other area trying to solve for it. They're over here. They see this problem. And they're like, oh, we just have all of that stuff that you guys are trying to get your hands on. And they're like, we're going to make it accessible to you.
So it's like they pulled from their own back pocket basically and was like, you know what, we already have this. So let's, and again, I'm not knocking any of the other companies that, are fraud prevention and some of these other ones, but I do agree with you that it is pretty cool that it's like,
well, and it's not necessarily like fraud prevention is still a huge market. It's definitely
sure.
Which like TextLocate is huge in, which I also talked to Ryan about and what they do. But the verification side of things, that, yeah, all like a lot of these companies, like people have been figuring out, like fraud is fraud, but like people have been like, how do we verify? How do we verify? We got to figure that out. How much verification is enough? How much isn't? What does the liability look like? What do you need for these court cases? And it's like, oh, Tenstreet is like, oh, we have all the data. Like, let us, kind of cross sides from the carrier to, the more of the freight side of things and be like, hey, here you go. And so it's not as much like a, is this going to work? Oh, this seems like it might work. It's like, no, this is like it's almost like over here everybody made a wish list and then somehow I got to Tenstreet and Tenstreet was like, oh, we have that. Like they already had it. Like it wasn't like they figured out a way to get it. It's like, oh no, we have that.
Well, and like you're saying, they've got the years of experience to show and pull from it. And I'm gonna pull a little bit of your age here, but it's just like you're saying, when you first started in recruiting, Tenstreet was there. You were introduced to Tenstreet then, and that was so long ago. It was a while ago, right? So
12 years ago.
There's nothing wrong with you looking and quote unquote fanboying out over what Tenstreet is looking to do, because you have seen the reputation and the product that they've put out in multiple areas from the moment you step foot in the industry to now, that it doesn't feel like someone that just pops up out of nowhere and it could be empty promises, right?
Right. And that's the thing that I've seen them do a lot with driver data and protecting it. Because I've also seen a lot of people, like we've done with like the like certain job boards and stuff. You put in your information, like that time when back on Cents Per Mile, I did that to Charles. Charles got like hundreds of phone calls and emails within 24 hours.
He might still be getting calls, man.
Right. And that's what I mean, like they've always done a great job with that part of it, that element. So it makes me feel good to see a player like that has like, because data, especially over the last the value of data is the new gold, is what people have been saying for a while, and it really, you can see it over the last like probably 20 years, like 10, even 15, like how much data has become everything with like Facebook ads, all that stuff. And the fact that they can like show you stuff without you actually even looking it up that you've been talking about. And it's just good to see like a good white hat player with a strong set of ethics about data protection being the ones who seemingly have the opportunity to really like fill that gap. And I'm excited about it.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited too. I'm excited for the future of the freight industry. That felt weird to say because we never know what the future is, right?
I mean, it's wild enough that we're going somewhere. I don't know that we know where we're going, but we're going.
We're that semi truck going off the. No, I'm just kidding. We're not semi truck going off the cliff. Some days,
and we might go up. Who knows?
But we are getting out of here. Thanks so much for tuning into the Freight Break. I'm your host, Josh Haynes, joined with my co-host Paul Gibson. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Freight Break on the BCS Freight Network, and now you're not.